Sean Diddy Combs used to throw the kinds of Thanksgiving dinners that ended up in magazines. Imagine tables lined with gold-plated flatware, handcrafted centerpieces, private chefs flown in from Paris, and guests sipping wine that costs more than most people's rent. Now fast forward to Thanksgiving 2025, and the same man is waking up to a breakfast of bran flakes, a banana and wheat toast, behind bars, according to a recently leaked report. This year's Thanksgiving for Diddy at FCI Fort Dix isn't shaping up to be quite the celebration he's used to. While most Americans are loading their plates with glazed ham and grandma stuffing, Diddy's expected to be served a prison tray with turkey roast, mashed potatoes, a scoop of corn, and a mystery dessert that insiders say might not even come with whipped cream. Earlier that same day, cold cereal, skim milk, and jelly on toast, hospital food at best. But this isn't just about turkey and gravy. It's a shocking glimpse at how far the music mogul has fallen in just 1 year. Once the life of every A-list party, Diddy is now inmate number 554-03069, spending his holidays under armed supervision. The man who once dropped millions on white parties in the Hamptons is now clocking into laundry duty and trying to relaunch a business course inside a federal prison. So how did one of hip-hop's wealthiest, most untouchable figures go from popping bottles with billionaires to scraping mashed potatoes off a tray? What's really happening behind those prison gates? And is Diddy actually trying to rebuild a brand while locked away? The leaked Thanksgiving meal is just the beginning. What we're about to uncover goes way beyond mystery meat and mashed potatoes, because Diddy's prison life is stranger, sadder, and more calculated than most people realize. Let's start from where it all began, and work our way to what's cooking behind the walls of Fort Dix. Just a year ago, Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just winning, he was a global icon, a billionaire on paper, the architect behind Bad Boy Records, the fashion force behind Sean John, and the mastermind of CROC's cultural takeover. If you heard his name, it was usually followed by words like mogul, legend, or untouchable, whether it was private yacht parties off the coast of Ibiza or exclusive soirees with Jay-Z, Beyoncé, and Rihanna. Diddy lived in a stratosphere few even dream about. Then September 2024 happened, and the empire shook. Federal agents made headlines worldwide when Diddy was arrested in connection to a sprawling sex trafficking investigation that caught the attention of nearly every major outlet. The charges, serious and years of whispers about parties, power plays, and inappropriate behavior suddenly became the center of a criminal case. But the real shock came when he wasn't just suspected, he was charged. The trial began in May 2025, running through midsummer like a legal blockbuster. Rumors flew, cameras camped outside the courthouse. Social media was lit every single day. And despite a massive legal team and public relations machine behind him, Diddy faced a stunning reality. The verdict was complicated but damning. The jury acquitted him of the most devastating accusations, racketeering and sex trafficking, but they found him guilty on 2 federal counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, a serious felony, and one that carried years of prison time. The sentence: for years in federal custody. Inside the courtroom, witnesses described a man who wasn't the king of cool anymore. One reporter said he looked like he'd aged a decade in just a few months. And when the verdict was read, he reportedly turned pale, stunned, but silent. Still, what rocked the world more than the legal outcome was who stayed silent afterward. Celebrities who once toasted him on yachts, not a word. Brands he'd been partnered with for years cut ties overnight. Entire fan communities turned, some out of disappointment, others out of disgust. You could feel the shift. Diddy wasn't just dethroned, he was erased from the room. And that was before the prison transport van pulled away. After his conviction in October 2025, Sean Combs was quietly transferred from the notoriously grim MDC Brooklyn to his new long-term home, FCI Fort Dix, a low-security federal prison in New Jersey. At first glance, low security might sound like it's easy time, but for someone like Diddy, this place is still a world away from penthouses and red carpets. Located just outside Trenton, Fort Dix is one of the largest federal correctional institutions in the U.S., holding around 3,000 male inmates. It's surrounded by thick Jersey woods, barbed wire fencing, and rows of institutional buildings with that cold, brutalist architecture typical of federal facilities. Despite its security classification, life here is tightly controlled, constant head counts, scheduled movements, and everything under surveillance. There's no fame card to play here, no VIP suites, just a bunk, a schedule, and a deeply humbling new reality. The prison houses a mix of non-violent offenders, white-collar criminals, drug-related sentences, and even disgraced public figures. In fact, Fort Dix has had its share of recognizable names. Teresa Giudice's husband Joe, from Real Housewives fame, spent time here, as did Kelly Jellybean Johnson, a former Wall Street executive convicted in the Enron fallout. The irony: these men once swam in the same social waters as Diddy. Now, they share the same chow line, but it's a step up from MDC Brooklyn, where Diddy spent nearly a year awaiting sentencing. MDC is infamous for poor conditions, overcrowding, crumbling infrastructure, and reports of inmates surviving without heating during brutal winter. One former inmate described it bluntly: if Rikers had a basement, it'd be MDC. At Fort Dix, Combs gets outside time, scheduled recreation, a library, and access to programs. It's still prison, make no mistake, but he isn't locked in a concrete box, 23 hours a day. One former Fort Dix inmate, speaking anonymously, said the toughest part isn't the beds or the food, it's the boredom, the repetition, and the loss of identity. In here, you're not your name, you're your number, he said. It doesn't matter who you are out there. For someone who built an entire empire off being a name, Diddy, Puff Daddy, love that reality might hit harder than any sentence ever could. The moment a celebrity walks into prison, the rules don't just change, they get rewritten entirely. For some, being famous behind bars means extra eyes, tighter scrutiny, and zero tolerance for mistakes. For others, it can quietly open doors to better jobs, safer housing units, and more respectful treatment. So which one is it for Diddy? Historically, fame in prison has been a double-edged sword. Martha Stewart, during her 5-month stint at a federal facility, was reportedly both envied and resented by fellow inmates, treated normally by staff, but gossiped about constantly. Lil Wayne, who served time at Rikers Island, was placed in protective custody for his own safety, living in near isolation. And then there's Tekashi 6ix9ine, in a prime example of a celebrity whose fame made him a target. After turning government witness, his prison time was surrounded by threats and high-risk transfers. For someone like Diddy, who isn't just famous, but rich, influential, and once considered untouchable, walking into a facility like Fort Dix presents a whole new game. Insiders have said he's trying to keep a low profile. No flashy behavior. No "do you know who I am" energy. Just the quiet awareness that every move he makes, someone's watching closely. Whether it's guards, other inmates, or the media perched just outside the gate. There are unconfirmed reports that prison officials have altered his assignments to protect him. Instead of food service or cleaning detail, common first jobs at Fort Dix, he's been placed in library work inside the chapel, a position seen as calmer, more contained, and far less exposed. Some sources suggest this was intentional, aimed at reducing his contact with the general population and limiting any potential conflicts. But there's another theory. Diddy might not be fading into the background at all. Rumors hint that he's subtly rebuilding his influence inside the system, mentoring inmates, speaking during prayer circles, even laying the groundwork for a revival of his free game business sessions. He might not run a record label anymore, but in here, even a whisper of celebrity can carry power. Still, there's no denying the risk. A guy like Diddy stepping into a yard full of career criminals is a walking headline, and not everyone sees his fame as status. Some see it as a target on his back, and respect. That's not given in prison. It's earned, or taken. Thanksgiving behind bars is a far cry from silk napkins and hand-carved tableside turkey, but believe it or not, even federal inmates aren't completely left out of the holiday spirit. That includes Sean Combs, who's about to experience a Thanksgiving meal that's nothing like the 5-star spreads he used to post on Instagram. According to TMZ, Diddy's Thanksgiving Day in FCI Fort Dix is going to start with a cold, quiet breakfast, bran flakes, a banana, whole wheat bread with jelly, and a small carton of skim milk. No pancakes, no omelets, just a tray and a clock ticking down the hours until the main event. Now, the dinner. That's where the prison tries to liven things up. Inmates will reportedly be served a turkey roast, mashed potatoes, a scoop of corn, and for dessert, something mysterious and unconfirmed, likely a mass-produced pastry or a slice of pie that tastes like it came from a vending machine. It's better than the usual weekday menu by a long shot, but let's be real, it's still institutional food. No seasoning, no sides worth bragging about, and certainly no Grammy-winning chefs in the kitchen. What's ironic is that last year, When Diddy was still being held at MDC Brooklyn, the Thanksgiving meal was actually better. Former inmates say the 2024 menu included a choice between traditional turkey or vegetarian hot and sour tofu, with gravy, cranberry sauce, mixed veggies, mashed potatoes, and even dinner rolls. Oh, and don't forget the holiday pies, reportedly offered in multiple flavors. It wasn't Mum's cooking, but it was closer to a real nod to the holiday than what Fort Dix is serving up this year. That downgrade hasn't gone unnoticed. Once the menu leak hit the internet, hip-hop fans lit up X, formerly Twitter, with reactions ranging from sympathy to savage memes. One comment read, "Diddy went from velvet napkins to value meal real quick." Another joked, "Even prison giving him diet meals that skim milk is cold-blooded." But beneath the memes and mockery, there's a different kind of conversation happening, one about falling from grace, and just how hard that fall can be during the holidays. Because this isn't just turkey and corn on a tray. It's a reminder that everything's changed for Diddy. And as the holiday season rolls on, this stripped-down celebration is only the beginning. Just a few years ago, Thanksgiving looked very different for Diddy. We're not talking about candlelit family dinners or laid-back house parties. No, Diddy's holidays were full-blown events. Think $100,000 table settings, private chefs flown in from Europe, yacht parties off the coast of South Beach, and a guest list that looked like the Grammy red carpet. Miami was often the hub. Diddy's oceanfront mansion in Star Island played host to exclusive holiday bashes that drew everyone from Kanye and Kim to Jay-Z and Beyoncé, as well as up-and-comers hoping to be noticed. His Thanksgiving dinners weren't just meals, they were cultural moments. Private performances, hours-long feasts, and champagne that flowed like water. Even the dinnerware was curated to match his brand. Gold accents, custom centerpieces, photos framed destined for tabloid inside look spreads. One insider once told Page 6, everything about his holiday gatherings was bigger than life. You didn't just eat, you experienced what it meant to be in Diddy's world. In 2019, TMZ reported on a Diddy Thanksgiving dinner that reportedly cost over $250,000. It included a flock of actual turkeys, not just roasted, but deep-fried, smoked, and truffle-stuffed, plus live music under a tented backyard sprawled with white roses and heat lamps glowing like a runway. That's not an exaggeration. This was a man who didn't just celebrate, he performed the holidays. Now, fast forward to 2025, and Diddy's holiday performance consists of lining up for turkey roast, monitoring how much corn gets scooped onto his tray, and eating off a flimsy plastic plate under fluorescent lights, surrounded by men in faded uniforms and cold institutional silence. That shift from opulence to order, from hosting Hollywood royalty to following prison routines, is jarring. This isn't just punishment by the justice system, it's a psychological gut punch. There's no guest list now, no flowing CROC, no whispers about who wore what, just rows of stainless steel tables, bolted down chairs, and the quiet reality that this year, the only thing Diddy's bringing to the table is himself. For someone who once claimed, "I don't chase dreams, I make them happen," Diddy's new reality is alarmingly ordinary. At FCI Fort Dix, life runs on strict schedules and stripped-down choices. Wake-up call hits at 6 a.m., followed by a quick roll call and a march down to the chow hall. Breakfast, usually some variation of powdered eggs or dry cereal with warm milk that's more gray than white. Not exactly dream big energy. After breakfast, it's straight into job assignments, and yes, even multi-millionaires are expected to earn their keep. Combs has reportedly been assigned work as a library aide inside the prison's chapel, sorting books, tracking checkouts, and helping with basic clerical duties. It's quiet, slow-paced work, a far departure from the buzz of studio sessions or executive meetings. He also helps in the laundry rotation, folding uniforms and washing sheets. The kind of job no assistant can handle for him anymore. But here's where things start to sound very Diddy, even behind bars. He's allegedly working on a new kind of hustle. Multiple sources say he's reviving free game with Diddy, a stripped-down version of a business mentorship class he once offered online. Inside Fort Dix, it's reportedly being tailored for inmates, covering entrepreneurship, branding, and even negotiation tactics. Sounds noble, right? But some say this could be damage control in disguise, a long play to reshape public perception, show rehabilitation, and possibly reduce his sentence down the road. Participation in prison programs like this, especially if they demonstrate leadership and positive influence, can sometimes work in an inmate's favor during parole reviews or early release programs. Still, irony drips from the situation. Here's a man whose empire once revolved around wealth, control, and status, now teaching financial freedom from inside a cage. It sounds like an oxymoron until you consider just how smart Diddy is about managing the narrative. Is it a genuine effort to uplift others? Maybe. Is it also a strategic move to rebuild his legacy from the inside? Almost definitely. Either way, mogul or not, he still has to report for lunch by 11:30. That's the way it works at Fort Dix. Everyone plays by the same rulebook, no matter how rich you are on the outside. And for Diddy, that rulebook is now his reality. When Sean Combs walked out of the courtroom and into prison life, most people assumed the story was over, empire crumbled, image destroyed, and legacy in question. But if there's one thing Diddy's proven throughout his career, it's that he never stays down for long. Now, from inside FCI Fort Dix, that same playbook appears to be in motion again, only this time, the audience is wearing jumpsuits and the stakes are freedom, not fortune. One of the more surprising reveals to come out of Fort Dix is Diddy's enrollment in RDAP, the Residential Drug Abuse Program. On paper, it's a federally accredited, intensive treatment course designed for inmates with documented histories of substance use. Participation involves group therapy, behavioral modification, coursework, and a strict, tight-knit community structure. But here's the part that's raising eyebrows. RDAP can sometimes shave up to 12 months off an inmate's sentence, and with good behavior credits factored in, that early release window grows even more tempting. For someone with the resources Diddy has, the move reads less like self-help, and more like strategy. After all, the mogul has publicly stated his past struggles with partying and substance use, which may help justify his admission into the program. But skeptics wonder if this is just the first move in a carefully staged blueprint for an eventual comeback. Then there's the apology, the one that came during his October 2025 sentencing hearing. Reportedly, emotionally, Diddy spoke directly to the courtroom, saying he was truly sorry to those who accused him and expressing regret for the power imbalances in his past relationships. Some in the courtroom were moved. Others saw it as pure PR theater. It's not the first time a celebrity has tried to reshape their image while doing time. Mike Tyson, Martha Stewart, and even Meek Mill all use their periods of incarceration as inflection points for redemption arcs. What's different now is the age of hyper-transparency. Every phone call, every leaked photo, every inmate rumor has the potential to make its way into headlines within hours. And the media, they're split. Some outlets are painting Diddy as a fallen star attempting to rebuild from inside the walls, using faith, education, and influence to rise again. Others are calling it a calculated narrative flip, designed to clean up his brand just enough for a public reinvention post-prison. So which is it? A man trying to right his wrongs, or a mogul in rebrand mode, already setting up the second act? One thing's for sure, Diddy's not sitting on his hands while the world forgets him. He may be behind bars, but he's still trying to steer the story. Diddy's prison sentence didn't just lock the doors on his freedom, it blew open floodgates that washed away decades of business, power and influence in a matter of months. Almost immediately after his conviction, the fallout began. His once flourishing empire, including fashion, media, and multi-million-dollar spirits brands, started crumbling under the weight of bad publicity and legal pressure. Sean John, the streetwear label he helped turn into a fashion staple in the early 2000s, distanced itself from his image entirely. Public-facing partnerships were scrubbed. Retailers pulled merchandise. The brand may still exist, but Diddy is no longer the face. Revolt TV, the black-owned media network he once touted as the future of culture, issued a quiet press statement acknowledging his legal situation and then pivoted internally. According to sources, leadership shifted, and several hosts and creators began taking their projects elsewhere. Behind the scenes, some insiders whispered they were under pressure to cut ties, not necessarily out of loyalty to justice, but out of fear for the brand's survival. Then there's the liquor business, one of Diddy's richest veins. He helped make CROCA Champagne Alternative in rap lyrics and turned De Leon Tequila into a lifestyle brand. But after the charges became public, whispers of brand damage turned into screaming headlines. Corporate partners reconsidered everything. Distribution slowed down. Industry insiders say the brands are surviving, but Diddy's name is being quietly erased from the marketing decks. And it wasn't just the brands that went silent. It was the people, the circle that once surrounded Diddy, the artists, the moguls, the influencers, who called him uncle, boss, even king, have gone eerily quiet. You'd expect some of them might come to his defense, but it's been almost nothing but silence. Jay-Z nothing. Beyoncé silent. Usher, no public comment, too busy in his own storm. Even longtime collaborators seem to have drawn the line, and behind bars, that silence speaks louder than any statement ever could. One former music exec put it this way: inside prison, Diddy's still a legend. His name carries weight, but outside, it's radio silence. He's not just cancelled, he's been erased. It isn't just a fall from grace, it's a complete appending of legacy. Because in this world your name only matters if people are still willing to say it. In the free world, Diddy's name opened every door. VIP access, private jets, entourages that moved like royal security. But inside FCI Fort Dix, it's not your net worth or Grammy count that matters. It's how you carry yourself behind the wire. So the question is, does influence still mean anything in prison? The answer, yes, but not in the way most people might think. On the inside, celebrity status comes with a strange mix of respect, risk, and resentment. Some inmates may see Diddy as a living legend, a man who turned street smarts into a billion-dollar empire, someone who walked the same blocks they did and made it out. To them, he represents success. He's a symbol, but to others, he's a walking headline, a liability, a potential magnet for federal attention, whispers of privilege, or even jealousy-fueled beefs. And that's where it gets complicated. According to several sources, there are rumors that Fort Dix staff have quietly taken steps to reduce his exposure to possible conflict. Assignment to chapel library duty, reportedly designed to keep him in lower traffic areas. Reduced time in general population, at least during pivotal moments like holidays or headcounts, and even whispers of unofficial protective observation, not solitary, but a subtle layer of shielding, not because he's a snitch, but because they don't want anything happening to him on their watch. But it cuts both ways. There are unconfirmed reports that Diddy's been extremely cautious with who he speaks to and where he moves. Some say he avoids groups, others claim he dines in silence, eats quick, and heads out. A few insiders have even floated the idea that he's paranoid about informants. After all, his entire case began with people on the inside talking. Then there's the gang. Politics, a layer of prison life that no amount of fame can shield you from. While Fort Dix is low security, it's not without alliances and unspoken rules. Some reports say Diddy's been approached by groups offering neutral protection, not extortion, but more like, stick with us and no issues. Others insist he's trying to walk solo, not choosing a side, hoping his fame alone keeps things chill. But in prison, fame doesn't guarantee security. If anything, it amplifies the stakes. Every move could be watched, every misstep, recorded mentally, whispered about later. If you're too confident, it's a problem. If you're too scared, that's worse. So while the world watches Diddy fall from mogul to inmate, inside those walls, he's walking a daily tightrope, one where money can't buy safety but influence. That might just keep him standing. For now. Thanksgiving 2025 will be Sean Combs' first major holiday behind bars, but it won't be the last. With only a few months down in a 4-year federal sentence, Diddy still has a long road ahead, unless he qualifies for time reductions through programs like RDAP and earns consistent good behavior credit. His earliest release window isn't expected until late 2028, and that's if everything goes his way. Next up on the prison calendar, Christmas and New Year's, which according to TMZ will come with their own special meals. Word is he'll get roast beef or chicken, some kind of apple or pumpkin dessert, and maybe a little sparkling cider substitute served in a plastic cup. It might sound festive on paper, but it won't feel like the Diddy Christmas of old. No velvet suits, no A-list gift exchanges, no million-dollar party decks overlooking warm Miami beaches. Just another count, another meal, and another reminder that the world he once ruled is still spinning without him. That said, there are rumblings on the outside. Music Diddy still controls a massive vault of unreleased material, collaborations, scratch vocals, even studio sessions with artists who've long left the spotlight. Some fans believe he's planning to drop music from behind bars, either through pre-recorded audio or hand off to trusted producers. It wouldn't be the first time artists like Gucci Mane, Lil Boosie and Tay-K have released tracks while incarcerated, maintaining a loyal audience and keeping their name alive in pop culture. But can Diddy really pull off a true comeback? We've seen it before: Meek Mill's viral release and reform narrative, Bobby Shmurda's return to fanfare. Even Tupac dropped timeless music while locked up. But the difference lies in the charges, the public optics, and who's still waiting when the cell door opens. Right now Diddy's brand is battered. His allies are silent, his legacy unclear. Will the music industry welcome him back with open arms, or quietly keep the door shut? By the time he walks free again, the culture could be completely different. New faces, new sounds, new rules. He'll have to rebuild in a world that may have moved on, or maybe, just maybe, one that's ready for redemption. But as we close out this saga, one last image hangs in the air. A man who once dined on caviar and crystal, now scraping mashed potatoes off a compartmentalized tray. A mogul once celebrated for the phrase, "can't stop, won't stop," now forced to pause everything. So when that final moment comes, when Diddy exits those prison gates and steps back into the world, will anyone still be listening?